Hello everyone, my name is Suman Dua and I'm a registered migration agent at Nationwide Migration and Education. We make videos every week in regards to Australian migration, and if this is the topic you are interested in, you may wish to subscribe to our channel. In this video today, we will be talking about Tasmania's 491 nomination criteria. The Skilled Work Regional Provisional Visa Subclass 491 is a provisional visa for skilled workers which allows you to live and work in Tasmania for up to 5 years. Nomination from Tasmania for this visa provides you with 15 additional points to help meet the Department of Home Affairs points test pass mark of 65 points. State nomination and your application for a visa are two separate processes. The Tasmanian government assesses your application for state nomination and the Department of Home Affairs assesses your visa application. Home Affairs criteria requires you to have a points test result of 65 or higher, inclusive of state nomination points, have a positive skills assessment in your nominated occupation, be under 45 years of age, meet the minimum English language requirement of competent unless a higher level is required by your assessing authority. Some important things to note before we look at Tasmania's 491 criteria are that meeting the minimum nomination requirements published on their website does not guarantee that you will be offered Tasmanian nomination. Only the most competitive registration of interest will be selected to be invited to apply for nomination. Candidates nominated for a subclass 491 skilled work regional provisional visa will not be nominated for a permanent subclass 190 skilled nominated visa in the future. If you or any family members, including those who don't apply for nomination with you, owe fees to Tasmanian government agencies such as for education or health, the debt must be paid or arrangements for payment must be made prior to seeking nomination. You will not be eligible for nomination until the debt has been paid or a payment plan has been accepted by the agency. Now, there are 3 steps involved with Tasmania's 491 nomination. The first one is the expression of interest in the skill select system. The second step is registration of interest. Registration is free and is valid for 6 months. If you're not invited to apply for nomination and your registration expires, you may register again. Step number 3 is the nomination application. There is a non-refundable fee of $300 plus $30 GST if in Australia to apply for nomination. In this video today, we will be looking at the nomination pathways for the 491 visa. Now, some important things to consider before we start looking at the nomination pathways are that you must meet the minimum nomination requirements for your chosen pathway to register your interest and be considered for nomination. The priority attributes for each pathway are not required, but they will make you more competitive for a limited number of nominations. The more of the attributes you have, the better your chances of nomination and the sooner you may be invited to apply for nomination. When you register in the gateway, depending upon your priority attributes you have, you will be given a gold, green or orange pass, which will indicate your priority status. If you receive a gold pass, you will immediately be able to apply for nomination. If you receive a green pass, you will be invited to apply within the next 6 weeks. If you are given an orange pass, you may be invited to apply for nomination within the next 6 months. Depending upon the volume of interest Tasmania has received and how many of the priority attributes you have. If you are not invited to apply within the 6 months, your registration will expire and you will need to complete a new registration in the gateway to be considered for a nomination invitation. There are 6 different nomination pathways for a 491 visa and each has different requirements and priority attributes that will determine your pass color. You may also need to possess one or more of the priority attributes listed for all pathways. The 6 nomination pathways are Tasmanian Skilled Employment Pathway, Tasmanian Skilled Graduate Pathway, Tasmanian Established Resident Pathway, Tasmanian Business Operator Pathway, Overseas Applicant Job Offer Pathway, Overseas Applicant OSOP, which is the invitation only pathway. Now let's look at the first one, which is the Tasmanian Skilled Employment Pathway. To be considered for this pathway, you must meet all the criteria. If you are working in a role classified as skill level 1 to 3 according to ANSCO, you must have been working in Tasmania for at least 6 months immediately prior to your application. Your employment must average at least 20 hours per week over the 6-month period immediately prior to lodging your application. If you have a skills assessment and related employment in an occupation listed on the Tasmanian onshore skilled occupation list, you may be eligible for nomination after 3 months of employment. You must currently be living in Tasmania and intend to continue living in Tasmania. Your dependents must not be living in another Australian state or territory. Your employment does not need to be related to your skills assessment. There must be a genuine ongoing need for your position within the business, including a minimum 12 months contract with at least 3 months remaining at the time you apply for nomination. If you are a subcontractor, you may be considered in this pathway if you have a related skills assessment and at least 12 months business activity in Tasmania. If your employment is not related to your skills assessment, you must have relevant qualifications or experience consistent with the ANSCO definition for that role. If you're working in a role classified at ANSCO skill level 4 or 5, you must have been working in Tasmania for at least 12 months immediately prior to your application. Your employment must average at least 20 hours per week over the 12-month period prior to lodging your application. You must currently be living in Tasmania and intend to continue living in Tasmania. Your dependents must not be living in another Australian state or territory. Your employment must be ongoing for at least 6 months beyond the application date. There must be a genuine and demonstrated severe labour recruitment difficulty for the role endorsed by your employer in a statement detailing the need for the position, local recruitment and workforce development activities and strategies in place that have attempted to address that recruitment difficulty. You must have relevant qualifications or experience consistent with the ANSCO definition for that role. There must be opportunities for career advancement endorsed in writing by your employer. Please note that some occupations have caveats, and to qualify for gold or green priority attributes, employment must be skilled, which is ANSCO level 1 to 3, and meet the caveats. Employment that does not meet these caveats can be claimed as semi-skilled, which is ANSCO 4 to 5 for orange attributes. Now let's look at the second pathway, which is Tasmanian Skilled Graduate Pathway. All occupations are eligible for this pathway. You must have completed a course of study and obtained a letter of completion from a tertiary institution in Tasmania registered on the CRI course. You must have lived in the state for at least 1 calendar year from the commencement of your course and for the duration of your studies. Your course of study must be AQF5, which is diploma or higher, or at least Certificate 3 related to an ANSCO Major Group 3 or Group 4 occupation and be listed on CRI course with a duration of at least 40 weeks. Your course must have been completed full-time and on-site in Tasmania. You must currently be living in Tasmania and intend to continue living in Tasmania. Now let's look at the next nomination pathway, which is Tasmanian Established Resident Pathway. To meet the requirements for this pathway, you must have been living in Tasmania for at least 2 years with no more than 50% of total Australian residence period spent in another Australian state or territory and currently be employed in Tasmania in either a role equivalent to ANSCO skill level 1 to 3, including a cumulative 6 months experience at the same level in the last 12 months, a minimum 20 hours per week, or a role equivalent to ANSCO skill level 4 or 5 with a cumulative 12 months experience at the same level or higher in the last 18 months, a minimum of 20 hours per week. Their fourth nomination pathway for subclass 491 is Tasmanian Business Operator Pathway. Now, to be considered for this pathway, you must meet all their criteria. You must demonstrate that you have established and operated a business solely owned or co-owned with spouse in Tasmania for at least 12 months. Your business must have provided a personal taxable income to you of at least 85% of the temporary skilled migration income threshold, that is currently $59,500. You must show that you have an understanding of the responsibilities and requirements around treating employees fairly by completing key units on the Fair Work Ombudsman online learning center. Owners of massage therapy businesses must have a related skills assessment and a verifiable health fund provider number. Subcontracting business owners are not eligible for consideration in this pathway. Let's look at the next pathway, which is the Overseas Applicant Job Offer Pathway. To be considered for this pathway, you must meet all their criteria. including the gold priority attribute. Now, all occupations are eligible for this pathway. You must have received a formal job offer for a job that is based in Tasmania that is closely related to your nominated occupation. You or any of your dependents must not have lived in another Australian state or territory within the last 12 months. Your employer must have a well-established business that has been actively operating in Tasmania for at least the past 12 months. Your wages and conditions must be no less favorable than those that would apply to an Australian citizen or permanent resident, and salary or wages must be at least equivalent to the local market salary rate. There must be a genuine and ongoing need for your position within the business and the capacity for the business to sustain your employment. Massage therapist positions must be located in a hospital, aged or disability care setting, or an elite healthcare setting such as physiotherapy clinic. Now, to meet the priority attributes for selection under gold category is a job offer from well-established Tasmanian business directly related to your skills assessment. Now, let's look at the sixth and the last nomination pathway for the subclass 491. It is the overseas applicant OSOP invitation only pathway. To be considered for this pathway, you must meet all the criteria, including the gold priority attribute. Migration Tasmania has contacted you in writing asking you to register on the Migration Tasmania Gateway. You will not be eligible for nomination if you have not first been contacted by Migration Tasmania. Your nominated occupation must be listed in the Overseas Skilled Occupation profiles. You or any of your dependents must not have lived in another Australian state or territory within the last 12 months. You must have access to sufficient financial assets to fund your migration and settlement in Tasmania for at least 6 months while you seek employment. If invited to apply for nomination, you must provide evidence of research into the Tasmanian job market. This can include evidence of networking with employers, HR reps via email, LinkedIn, or contact with recruitment agencies that specialize in your area of employment. Evidence should include your email, message, as well as the response you have received. Communication with the professional groups or industry associations in Tasmania relevant to your occupation. A list of professional associations and their contact details can be found on the Business Tasmania website. If invited to apply for nomination, you must provide personal research into recent advertised positions relevant to your nominated occupation. A minimum of 2 vacancies no older than 6 weeks before you apply for nomination. You must provide an employment statement for each advertisement explaining how your qualifications, knowledge, and experience relate to and meet the requirements for each of the job advertisements. To meet the priority attributes for selection under gold category, applicant must be invited through Skill Select by Migration Tasmania to register interest on the Migration Tasmania. Now, please note that Tasmania has the most complicated nomination and invitation process, and each pathway has their own requirements and attributes. If you are considering applying for a nomination with Tasmania in this financial year, you may wish to seek professional help. If you have any questions regarding your visa options, please book a consultation through the link in the description below. If you have any questions in regards to Australian migration, please get in touch with us. You can visit our website nationwidemigration.com.au and book a consultation online. If you would like to stay updated about Australian migration, please subscribe to our channel.